Chosen one. Something has shifted in the unseen realm, and your body is feeling what your spirit has already stepped into. This is not random, and this moment right now is not ordinary. You didn't just click on this video, heaven aligned this encounter, because there is a message your spirit has been trying to understand. Anointed one. The exhaustion, the heaviness, the strange disconnect from what once felt normal. It is not a sign that you are falling apart. It is a sign that something greater is being activated within you. As it is written in Isaiah chapter 40 verse 31, those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Yet before that renewal, there is a sacred pause, a divine recalibration. You are in that moment now. A massive spiritual shift is taking place, and your natural body is trying to catch up with a supernatural upgrade. What used to sustain you no longer satisfies you because your spirit has outgrown its former environment. Chosen one. This is the threshold between who you were and who you are becoming. Stay with this message, because what you're about to understand will reveal why everything suddenly feels different and what heaven is preparing to release into your life next. Chosen one. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary fatigue. It is the sound of something shifting deep within your spirit, like tectonic plates moving beneath the surface of your life. You may not have the language for it yet, but your soul recognizes it. Something is being rearranged, and your body is responding before your mind can catch up. You wake up tired even after rest. You feel a weight you cannot explain. Conversations that once felt normal now feel empty, and part of you has quietly started to wonder, what is happening to me? Anointed one, hear this clearly. This is not you falling apart. This is you being pulled out of alignment with what can no longer carry your destiny. There are seasons where strength looks like movement, but there are also seasons where strength looks like surrender. And right now, you are in a sacred pause that heaven itself has orchestrated. There is a recalibration happening within you, not on the surface, not where others can see, but in the hidden places where identity, calling, and purpose are being rewritten. As it says in Isaiah chapter 40 verse 31, those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. But what is often overlooked is this renewal requires a breaking down of the old capacity before the new can be released. So the exhaustion you feel is not a failure of strength. It is the dismantling of outdated systems within you. What once sustained you is no longer sufficient because you are being prepared to carry something greater. And here is what most people will not understand. They will look at you and assume you are losing momentum. They will offer surface solutions for something that is deeply spiritual. They will tell you to push harder, to do more, to return to the version of yourself that was easier for them to understand. But something inside you refuses to go back. That resistance you feel toward the familiar is not confusion, it is discernment. Your spirit is no longer willing to operate at a level that your calling has already outgrown. And that creates tension. It creates discomfort. It creates this strange in-between space where you're no longer who you were, but not yet fully who you're becoming. And that space can feel heavy. Let me speak to something very real that you may not have said out loud. There are moments where even simple interactions drain you. A text message, a conversation, a room filled with people, and suddenly your energy drops. Your chest tightens. Your mind becomes foggy. You cannot explain it, but you feel it instantly. That is not random. Your spirit has become more sensitive because it is being refined. What you are feeling is the beginning of a heightened awareness, an internal alarm system that is activating to protect what has been placed inside of you. You are starting to sense what aligns and what does not, even before anything is spoken. And that realization can be unsettling, because it forces you to see things you once ignored. You begin to notice the difference between words and energy. You begin to recognize that not every presence around you carries peace. You begin to feel the weight of connections that once felt normal. And here is the truth that changes everything. Your exhaustion is not just about what you are carrying. It is also about what you are still connected to. There are places, conversations, and relationships that have been quietly draining you, not because you are weak, but because you have been giving from a place that was never meant to be constantly accessed. You have been pouring into spaces that cannot hold what you carry, and now your spirit is saying enough. Not in anger, not in rejection, but in preservation. Because what is being built inside of you right now requires boundaries that your past self did not know how to set. It requires discernment that cannot be ignored. It requires a level of separation that may feel uncomfortable, but is absolutely necessary. This is where many misunderstand the process. They think growth will feel empowering every step of the way. But real transformation often begins with depletion, not because you are being weakened, but because you are being emptied of what cannot go with you. And that emptiness, that is where the shift begins. Because in that space, something new is being formed, something that does not rely on external validation, something that does not depend on constant activity, something that is anchored in a deeper source. But before that new strength emerges, there is a moment where everything feels uncertain, and that is exactly where you are right now. You are standing in the middle of a transition that cannot be reversed, and what you choose to recognize in this moment will determine how you move forward. Because this is not just about rest. There is something else happening beneath the surface that you need to see. Chosen one, what makes this moment so difficult is not just the exhaustion itself, but the confusion that comes with it. You are used to pushing forward, used to carrying weight, used to showing up even when it costs you something. But now something deeper is interrupting that pattern. It is as if an invisible hand has pressed pause on your usual rhythm, and no matter how much you try to override it, your body refuses to cooperate. This is where many misinterpret what is happening. They think they are losing discipline, losing passion, losing drive. But in reality, something far more sacred is taking place. Anointed One. There is a difference between being tired from effort and being slowed down by divine intervention. One drains you because you are overextended, but the other stops you because you are being repositioned. Right now, you are not being pushed forward, you are being pulled inward. And that inward movement is where the real transformation is happening. You are being disconnected from the very systems that once defined your pace, your identity, and your sense of productivity. There were patterns in your life that kept you moving, but they were never meant to sustain your next level. You were drawing energy from places that cannot support what you are becoming. So, instead of allowing you to continue operating from those sources, everything has been interrupted. That is why the things that used to energize you now feel draining. That is why your motivation has shifted. It is not because you have lost your purpose, it is because your purpose has outgrown your old structure. You may have noticed that your desire to engage with certain people has faded without explanation. Conversations that once flowed easily now feel forced. You find yourself withdrawing not out of rejection, but out of an unspoken awareness that something no longer aligns. And that realization can feel isolating because you cannot always explain it in a way others understand. But this is where discernment begins to mature. It is no longer just a thought, it becomes a physical response. There are moments when your body reacts before your mind even processes what is happening. A sudden heaviness when someone speaks, A subtle tension in your chest when a familiar name appears. A quiet discomfort in environments that once felt neutral. These are not random sensations. This is your spirit communicating in a language that bypasses logic. It is showing you what your conscious mind has not fully accepted yet. And here is what you must understand, chosen one. Not every connection in your life was meant to remain. Some were assigned for a season, some were allowed for growth, and some were simply tolerated because you did not yet have the clarity to release them. But now that clarity is being forced to the surface. And it is not gentle because what is at stake is too important. There are influences around you that do not need to be dramatic, to be draining. It is not always conflict. Sometimes it is subtle. It is the constant emotional weight you carry for others. It is the unspoken expectations placed on you. It is the quiet pressure to remain available even when it costs you your peace. Over time, that kind of strain builds, and eventually your spirit reaches a point where it can no longer sustain it. So what happens next is not a breakdown, it is a boundary being enforced from within. You begin to feel resistance toward what once felt normal. You begin to crave distance without fully understanding why. And this is where many people make a mistake. They ignore the signal and try to force themselves back into alignment with something their spirit has already rejected. But your exhaustion will not lift if you keep returning to what is draining you. Because the fatigue is not just coming from within, it is being reinforced by what you are still allowing access to your energy. This is where the shift becomes undeniable. You are no longer able to ignore what you feel. You are no longer able to tolerate what disrupts your peace. And even though part of you may want to hold on to familiarity, something deeper is urging you to let go. That tension between holding on and releasing is where you are right now, and it is not meant to last forever. It is meant to lead you to a decision, because there is something you have not fully confronted yet, and something you have sensed but have not named. And until you face it, the weight you feel will continue to follow you into every space you enter. Chosen one. The moment you stop resisting what you feel, clarity begins to surface in a way that cannot be ignored. What once felt vague starts to take shape. What once felt confusing begins to reveal its pattern. And what you have been sensing all along finally rises into your awareness with undeniable weight. There is something in your life that has been quietly draining you, not through chaos, but through constant access. It has blended into your routine so seamlessly that you normalized its presence, even as it slowly depleted your strength. Anointed One. This is where the shift deepens, because now you're no longer just feeling the exhaustion, you're beginning to understand its source. There are connections that have remained in your life, not because they are aligned, but because they are familiar. And familiarity has a way of disguising imbalance. You tolerated certain dynamics because they did not appear harmful on the surface, but your spirit has been carrying the weight of what your mind chose to overlook. You have given your time, your attention, your empathy, your presence, often without realizing how much it was costing you, not because you are weak, but because you are generous. And that generosity, when placed in the wrong environment, becomes a constant outflow with no return. Over time, that creates a quiet form of exhaustion that cannot be solved with rest alone. There is a difference between being physically tired and being spiritually depleted. Physical rest can restore your body, but it cannot restore what is being continuously drained. And that is why you wake up feeling like you have not recovered, because the source of the depletion has not been addressed. You are trying to recharge while still connected to what is pulling from you. You may have noticed how certain interactions leave you feeling heavier instead of lighter, How after speaking with certain people, your mind becomes clouded and your energy drops without explanation. How your motivation fades in spaces where you once felt engaged. These are not coincidences. These are indicators that something within your environment is no longer compatible with who you are becoming. And here is where the discomfort intensifies. Because recognizing the source is one thing, but accepting what it means is another. It requires you to admit that not everything around you can move forward with you. It requires you to acknowledge that some of what you have held on to is no longer meant to remain. This is not about blame. It is not about labeling people as good or bad. It is about alignment. It is about understanding that growth creates separation, not as punishment, but as necessity. As it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1, there is a time for everything and a season for every purpose under heaven. And some seasons are meant to end even if nothing dramatic happened to cause it. That is what makes this moment so complex. There may be no clear conflict, no obvious reason to walk away, no visible sign that something is wrong, but your spirit knows. And now your body is confirming it in a way that you can no longer ignore. You are being shown what no longer fits your next level. Not through words, but through experience. Through the heaviness, the fatigue, the lack of alignment that follows you when you engage with certain environments. And the longer you remain connected to what drains you, the longer the exhaustion will remain. This is where many hesitate because letting go does not always feel empowering at first. It can feel uncertain. It can feel uncomfortable. It can feel like you are losing something, even when you know deep down it is necessary. But what you are actually doing is creating space for what is meant to enter. And that space cannot be created without release. Chosen one. The exhaustion is not your enemy. It is your signal. It is showing you that something must change, not externally first, but internally. The way you allow access. The way you respond to what drains you, the way you prioritize your energy. Because what is ahead of you requires more than strength. It requires clarity. It requires boundaries. It requires a level of alignment that cannot coexist with what has been quietly pulling you out of position. And as this realization settles in, another truth begins to rise, one that you may not have fully considered yet. It is not just about what is draining you. It is also about what is waiting for you once you finally release it. Chosen one. Once you begin to release what has been draining you, something unexpected starts to happen. It is not loud at first. It does not arrive with immediate clarity or visible results. But internally, there is a subtle shift, like pressure being lifted from a place you did not realize was carrying so much weight. Your breathing changes. Your thoughts become quieter. The constant tension you have been holding begins to loosen, even if only slightly. Anointed one. This is the beginning of realignment. Not the kind that comes from forcing yourself into discipline, but the kind that happens when you finally stop resisting what your spirit has been trying to tell you. There is a difference between pushing forward in the wrong direction and being repositioned into the right one. And right now, you are being repositioned. You may not see the full picture yet, but something is opening. Not outwardly at first, but within your perception. You begin to notice that the noise around you is losing its influence. The urgency that once controlled your decisions no longer feels as strong. The need to respond, to explain, to stay connected to everything and everyone starts to fade. And in that quiet, something else begins to rise. It is a sense of clarity that does not come from overthinking, but from alignment. You start to recognize what actually matters, not based on habit, but based on truth. You see more clearly where your energy has been misdirected. You understand why certain things felt so heavy. And most importantly, you begin to feel the difference between what drains you and what sustains you. This is where many people miss the moment. They focus so much on what they are losing that they fail to recognize what is being restored. Because every time you remove something that was misaligned, you create space for something that is meant for you. And that space is not empty, it is active. It is where new direction, new opportunities, and new strength begin to take form. There are things that have been waiting for you, but they could not reach you while your energy was tied up in the wrong places. Not because they were withheld, but because there was no capacity to receive them. You cannot carry what is meant for your next level while still holding on to what belongs to your past. And this is why the release is necessary even when it feels difficult. You may have already started to notice small changes, moments where you feel unexpectedly lighter, brief periods where your mind is clear in a way it has not been for a long time, a renewed sense of focus that comes without effort. These are not random. These are signs that your energy is beginning to return to you. And as that energy returns, so does your ability to see beyond what was in front of you before. You begin to recognize patterns you did not see. You understand why certain things unfolded the way they did. And instead of feeling confused, you start to feel grounded in a way that is new. But this is only the beginning. Because as you continue to separate from what no longer aligns, the shift will become more noticeable, not just internally, but in your external reality. The way things respond to you will begin to change. The resistance you once felt in certain areas will start to ease. Opportunities that once seemed blocked may begin to open in ways you did not expect. And this is where the process becomes undeniable. Because what you once thought was loss starts to reveal itself as preparation. What felt like isolation begins to make sense as protection. What seemed like delay starts to show itself as timing. Chosen one, you are not being set back, you are being set into position. And as you stand in that position, something else begins to surface, something that requires more than awareness, something that requires a decision you can no longer avoid. Chosen one. The clarity you have begun to feel now leads you to a point where awareness is no longer enough. You can sense what is misaligned, you can recognize what has been draining you, but there comes a moment when recognition must turn into action. And that moment is where many hesitate, because action requires you to let go in a way that cannot be undone. Anointed one. This is the decision that defines the shift, not because it is dramatic, but because it is final in your spirit. You are no longer negotiating with what you already know. You are no longer trying to make space for what has proven it cannot align. You are choosing quietly but firmly to honor what has been revealed to you. This kind of decision does not always look like confrontation. It does not require explanation or conflict. Sometimes it is simply a withdrawal of access, a boundary that is no longer flexible, a distance that is no longer temporary. And even though it may appear subtle on the outside, internally, it is a complete shift in authority. You begin to understand that your energy is not something to be constantly given away. It is something to be directed with intention. You stop responding to every demand. You stop feeling responsible for things that were never yours to carry. You stop overextending yourself in environments that do not return what they receive. And as this change takes place, there may be a moment where everything feels quieter than expected. The constant noise fades, the interactions decrease. The sense of being needed in certain spaces begins to disappear, and for a brief moment it can feel like absence. But this is not absence. This is space. Space for your thoughts to settle, space for your strength to rebuild. space for your direction to become clear without interference. This is where your foundation begins to stabilize because you are no longer being pulled in multiple directions. There is a shift in how you move. You are no longer reacting, you are choosing. You are no longer trying to maintain everything, you are focusing on what actually matters. And in that focus, your energy starts to concentrate instead of scatter. This is where something deeper begins to take form. Not just clarity, but authority. The kind that does not come from control, but from alignment. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth or justify your decisions. You are grounded in what you know, even if others do not understand it. And here is where the change becomes visible. The same situations that once drained you no longer have the same effect. The same voices that once influenced you no longer carry the same weight. The same environments that once felt overwhelming now feel distant, as if you are no longer operating on the same level. It is not that the world around you has changed overnight. It is that you have. And because you have changed, what you attract and what you allow will begin to change as well. This is where new alignment starts to appear. Not forced, not rushed, but naturally. You begin to encounter moments that feel different. Conversations that feel lighter, opportunities that feel clear instead of complicated, a sense of movement that does not require struggle to maintain. But there is still one thing that must be understood. The decision you have made is not just about what you are leaving behind. It is also about what you are stepping into. And what you are stepping into will require a version of you that is fully present, fully aware, and no longer divided between past patterns and future direction. This is why the process has been so intense, because what is ahead of you cannot be carried by the version of you that was still entangled in what you have now released. And as you stand in this new space, you begin to feel something return that you may not have realized was missing, a sense of strength that is not forced, a clarity that does not require constant effort, a presence that feels steady instead of scattered. And this is only the beginning of what is about to unfold, because now that the space has been created, something is about to enter that could not reach you before. Chosen one. Now that the space has been made, you may begin to notice something subtle but undeniable rising within you. It is not loud or overwhelming, but it carries a quiet authority that was not there before. It feels like a return, but deeper, like something that always belonged to you is finally settling into place without resistance. Anointed One. This is where restoration begins to take form, not as a sudden burst of energy, but as a steady rebuilding of what was once scattered. Your thoughts become clearer, your reactions become more intentional, your presence becomes more grounded. You are no longer operating from depletion, you are operating from alignment. And as that alignment strengthens, so does your ability to discern direction without confusion. Decisions that once felt complicated begin to feel simple. You no longer need excessive time to process what feels right or wrong. There is an inner knowing that guides you not based on fear or urgency, but based on clarity. This is the result of what has been happening beneath the surface. While it felt like you were being slowed down, you were actually being stabilized. While it felt like you were losing momentum, you were being redirected. And now that redirection is starting to reveal itself in a way that is tangible. You may begin to notice that things flow differently. What once required effort now begins to move with ease. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer forcing yourself into what does not fit. You are moving in alignment with what is already positioned for you. There is also a shift in how opportunities present themselves. They no longer come with confusion or pressure. They come with clarity. You can sense whether something is right for you without overanalyzing it. And that sense of clarity protects you from stepping into situations that would have drained you before. This is where your energy becomes a form of currency. Not something to be spent without thought, but something to be invested with intention. You begin to understand that where your attention goes, your strength follows. And because your strength is no longer scattered, it begins to accumulate. That accumulation creates momentum. Not the kind that burns you out, but the kind that sustains itself. You are no longer running on urgency, you are moving with direction. And that difference changes everything. There may also be a noticeable shift in how others respond to you. Some will feel the distance and not understand it. Others will recognize the change, but not be able to explain it. And some will naturally fall away because they can no longer access you in the same way. This is not something you need to manage. It is a natural result of your alignment. When you change how you engage, what surrounds you must adjust. And that adjustment may feel uncomfortable at times, but it is necessary. Because what is entering your life now requires a different environment. It requires clarity, not confusion. It requires stability, not constant disruption. It requires focus, not divided attention. You may also begin to experience moments where everything feels unusually still, as if nothing is happening. But do not mistake that stillness for stagnation. That stillness is where things are being set into place. It is where timing aligns. It is where what has been prepared begins to move toward you. As it says in Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3, the vision is for an appointed time. Though it may seem delayed, it will not wait beyond its moment. What you are stepping into has its own timing, and that timing is beginning to align with you now. And this is where the shift becomes undeniable, because what once felt distant begins to feel close. What once felt uncertain begins to feel clear. What once felt blocked begins to open. Chosen one, you are not chasing what is meant for you anymore. You are becoming aligned with it. And as that alignment completes itself, something is about to happen that will confirm everything you have just moved through. Chosen one. This moment was not random, and what has been awakened in you will not fade when this video ends. Something has already shifted within your spirit, and that shift is aligning you with what heaven has prepared for you in this appointed time. You are standing in a kairos moment where unseen doors are already moving, where circumstances are quietly rearranging themselves to meet you in your next level. Anointed one, receive this with peace. You are not behind, you are not late, and you are not overlooked. What has been unfolding in your life has been precise, intentional, and guided. The strength returning to you, the clarity settling within you, the boundaries you have begun to establish, all of it is part of a divine transfer that is already in motion. Walk forward with calm assurance. Do not rush, do not doubt, and do not return to what has already been released. Stay aligned, stay aware, and trust the rhythm that is now guiding your steps. What is meant for you will meet you without confusion. If your spirit confirms this word, simply write Amen or 777 in the comments as your declaration that you receive this shift fully. And if this message resonated with you, stay connected so you do not miss the words that are meant to guide you in this season. You are covered, you are aligned, and you are stepping into what has already been prepared for you.